Let's be honest. Most of us study a lot, but don't really move forward. You might sit for hours highlighting, rereading, making notes that look perfect, but by the next day, it's like your brain just pressed delete. And the worst part? You feel guilty for not being productive enough. So you push yourself harder, stay up later, and repeat the same habits that quietly waste your time. I used to do that too. I thought studying longer meant learning more. Turns out, it's one of the biggest lies students tell themselves. But here's the good news. Harvard researchers have studied what actually makes studying efficient, and the results are surprisingly simple. So today, we'll look at 5 study habits backed by Harvard that don't drain your time. They save it. By the end, you'll know exactly how to study less, learn faster, and actually remember what you study. We'll cover 1. Why rereading is secretly hurting your memory. 2. The brain spacing trick that locks information in long-term memory. 3. How to use testing as a learning tool, not just for exams. 4. The focus system that top Harvard students use daily. 5. And finally, a counterintuitive way to stop procrastinating before you even begin. Each of these comes from cognitive science research and real student case studies from Harvard. Let's start with the biggest myth of all. When you reread notes or textbooks, it feels productive. You recognize the information. Your brain says, yeah, I know this, and you move on. But Harvard's learning labs found that rereading gives only a false sense of mastery. You're familiar with the words, not the ideas. Instead, they recommend something called active recall. Active recall means you close the book and try to remember out loud or on paper what you just learned. It's uncomfortable. You'll realize how much you don't know. But that's exactly why it works. When you force your brain to pull information out instead of just recognize it, it strengthens memory connections like exercise strengthens muscles. Think of it this way. Rereading is like watching someone else work out and expecting to get stronger. Active recall is you actually lifting the weight. Even a few minutes of recall after each study session can double your retention rate. Next up, the spacing effect. It's one of the most powerful, time-saving study methods Harvard researchers swear by. Most students cram. They study everything the night before an exam and hope it sticks. It doesn't, because the brain sees cramming as short-term stress, not long-term learning. The spacing effect means spreading your review over time, letting your brain forget a little, then relearn. Here's how it works. Let's say you learn a concept on Monday. You review it again on Wednesday, then Sunday, then next week. Each review session takes less time, but strengthens your memory tenfold. This is why apps like Anki or Quizlet are based on spaced repetition, because your brain builds deeper pathways when it struggles to recall after some forgetting. In other words, forgetting is part of learning, and that tiny struggle to remember, that's what makes it stick. If you ever feel like reviewing spaced out like this takes more time, remember, cramming wastes hours because you forget everything. Spacing takes minutes, but lasts years. This one might sound strange, but testing isn't just to check learning. It creates learning. A Harvard study showed that students who tested themselves, even before they thought they were ready, scored significantly higher on later exams than those who only reviewed. Why? Because every time you test yourself, you trigger retrieval practice, the brain's memory reinforcement system. You don't even need a real test. You can quiz yourself with flashcards, teach the concept to a friend, or explain it out loud, pretending to be the teacher. When you do that, you force your mind to organize the information, connect ideas, and simplify, and that process is learning. One Harvard professor puts it this way. Testing transforms passive review into active engagement, and active engagement is how the brain learns. So instead of reading Chapter 3 again, ask, can I explain this to a 10-year-old? If you can't, you found your weak point. And that's where real learning begins. Here's another secret from Harvard's most productive students. They don't study for 6 hours straight. They study in cycles. The research calls it an ultradian rhythm, the body's natural 90-minute focus cycle. After about 90 minutes, your brain's ability to focus sharply drops. So if you push past that point, your productivity doesn't just level off, It reverses. You end up rereading, zoning out, or scrolling through your phone between pages. The fix? Study for 50 to 90 minutes. Then take a 15-minute real break. No phone, no screens, just step away. During that break, your subconscious keeps processing what you learned. When you come back, you'll find ideas connect faster and recall feels easier. It's the same rhythm used by researchers, coders, and even professional athletes to sustain deep focus for long hours without burnout. So if you've ever wondered how some students can study for 8 hours a day and still feel fresh, it's not willpower, it's rhythm. Now, let's talk about something that destroys every good study plan: procrastination. You tell yourself, I'll start after lunch. Then lunch becomes evening. Then tomorrow. Harvard psychologist studying motivation found a powerful fix: the 5-minute rule. It's simple. When you don't feel like studying, don't force yourself to do it for an hour. Just start for 5 minutes. That small start bypasses the brain's resistance, because your mind doesn't fear 5 minutes, but it fears hours of hard work. What usually happens is once you start, your brain builds momentum. 5 minutes turns into 15, then an hour. It's a mental trick to rewire your habits. And here's a tip. Pair the 5-minute rule with environment design. Keep your book open, your desk clean, your phone away. Because often, procrastination isn't about laziness. It's about friction. Remove friction, and focus naturally follows. But before we wrap up, let's talk about what not to do. The mistakes that undo all this effort. 1. Don't multitask. Switching between your phone, messages, and studying breaks your concentration cycle every time. Multitasking doesn't divide focus, it destroys it. 2. Don't study without reflection. After each session, take 1 minute to ask, what did I actually learn? What's still confusing? That tiny reflection builds metacognition, thinking about your thinking, which Harvard calls a key to mastery. 3. Don't measure productivity by hours. Measure by clarity. Did you understand a concept deeply? Could you explain it without notes? That's real productivity. Let's quickly recap the 5 Harvard-backed habits that save time and build lasting knowledge. 1. Replace rereading with active recall. Don't just look at the words. Pull the knowledge out yourself. 2. Use the spacing effect. Review less often but more strategically. 3. Test yourself early and often. Testing is learning, not a punishment. 4. Study in focus cycles. Short, deep sessions beat long, tired ones. 5. Use the 5-minute rule to start. Action first, motivation second. If you apply even 2 of these consistently, you'll notice studying feels lighter, like your brain finally has a system instead of chaos. At the end of the day, the goal isn't to study harder, it's to study smarter. And Harvard's research shows smarter often means simpler. Less time wasted, less guilt, and more results. Try one of these methods today. Maybe it's active recall after your next reading, or a 5-minute start when you feel stuck. See how your brain responds. And if you found something helpful here, subscribe, or even just leave a comment sharing which habit you'll try first. Because small habits shared spread faster. You don't need to become a perfect student overnight. You just need to stop wasting time on what doesn't work and start practicing what science already knows does.